First question, CCPOA, Don Parada, Prop 11, and the recall, all taken together, what should California voters take away from that?
Well, I think that the whole thing couldn't have come in a more perfect time, obviously, to have this happen literally 7 weeks out before the election when the people have a choice and through Proposition 11 and to take the power back into the people's hands and take it away from the legislators. I think it's perfect. I think that's what Proposition 11 is all about redistricting and, to take control again of state government and take that control away from the legislators. And I think that it's very clear that the CCPOA, the prison guard union, are demanding certain things. And I always made clear that we will respect them. We know exactly the tough job that prison guards are doing and what risks they are getting into with this job and all of this. But we will only pay the things that we can afford and that is fair. But if special interests push me around, I made it clear in 2003 when I ran for governor that I will push back. And this is not the previous administration where they demand and they get everything that they demand. They get the things that they deserve, not more than that.
Negotiations for the budget. Taxes are the Republicans' big issue. Looking back at what happened when Pete Wilson raised taxes and the fallout from that and the guff that he's still getting for it, are you still sure that's the way to go?
Well, first of all, let me just say that this is not an easy job. I think that when I was elected governor, I remember when we had the inauguration, all of the governors that were here came up to me afterwards and said, look, you better enjoy this day because this is going to be the happiest day in your life. And I said, from here on, it's going to go downhill. And he says, you will be going to funerals where you will be crying because police officers were shot brutally. You will be going to funerals of firefighters where people got burned, on their job, and you will be hanging there for months in budget negotiations, and they will be dragging out and dragging on, and the people will be attacking you for making certain cuts, and other people will be attacking you for maybe proposing extra revenues, and all those kind of things you're going to go through. So now I know what they were talking about. Then I didn't know what they were talking about, but now I don't, and that's what the job is. Look, if you are in a center, like I am, and I'm trying to come up with a budget that is a compromised budget, which means that we should not go and make all cuts, $15 billion in cuts, that we should have a compromise where we say, let's do $10 billion in cuts and let's create the extra $5 billion in revenues. There's others that say, no, let's create the other $5 billion by borrowing. There's others that say, hey, let's just go and do tax loopholes. But then again, you take tax incentives away from companies that then move on to other states. So there's really no perfect solution here. There's only what is the best out of all the bad solutions. And so one has to recognize that. And I think that our compromised version of $5 billion of revenues and $10 billion of cuts, and in return also getting the budget reform so we have a rainy day fund and can have the possibility of mid-year cuts, I think that's a good deal.
Is there a reason for lawmakers on either side of the aisle to come off of their stances right now? And would you support something like a moratorium on raising campaign funds or a forfeiture of pay after a budget deadline has been missed?
Well, you must be reading my script because, interestingly enough, I've been for years trying to go and change the campaign finance rules here because I am a strong believer that we should have a law that says that from the time we start negotiating the budget to the time we sign the budget, no one should be allowed to do fundraising. Because I think it is crazy when we have here the debates in the Capitol here about certain issues and certain programs and or construction or whatever it may be, and then you go an hour later across the street and have a fundraiser and you get money from people that may benefit from the decisions that are made here. So I have been talking about that all along. The other thing that you mentioned is, should the legislators not get paid if they don't do the budget? Well, right now they don't get paid, but they get the money back. As soon as we have a budget, they get the money back. So I say, what's the point of that? So you then get paid. no matter how optically it looks right now that they're not getting paid. So what I would do is from the first day on, from June 15th on, you will not get paid, period, if there's not a budget, and you will never get it back. That's what I would do. I would have consequences that really mean something to them, so that they start negotiating in February and in March, knowing that the deadline is June 15th. But right now, what has happened is it's outrageous that they have had, their conference committee until July, the first week in July. That was already 3 weeks after the constitutional deadline. Then they started negotiating. And I kept saying to them, look, this will take months to negotiate this budget because it's a very complex budget, and it is very difficult because we want to do budget reform. There's a lot of moving parts here. Let's start working in the spring, and then we will get it done on time. And of course, no one came down, no one negotiated until exactly after the first week in July.
If you ran a business and you were in as big of a hole as the state is, or even a comparable hole, you'd be forced to lay off workers. Why not lay off state workers? Why not shrink the size of government, or do you believe you have?
Well, first of all, let me just say that we did lay off state workers, and we did also, we are fighting right now to get everyone to be paid minimum wage, federal minimum wage. So we took certain measures. But I also at the same time want to say, don't compare government with a private sector or with a company. Because there's no company that we know where you have 120 people making decisions to move the company forward or to make decisions on acquisitions or anything like that. We hear every decision that we make, we have 120 legislators that move in and say, whoa, let's change this. I have someone that needs that. Let's change that. Let's change this law. Let's add this on it. Let's strip this away. And by the time it comes out, that's why people say to make law and to make sausage, there's two things you don't want to watch because it's ugly. And so I think that, you cannot compare the two, because if in reality, if I sit here and I'm the CEO of a company, there would be no problem. We would have had a budget already on June 15th because I would have said it would be the compromised budget and we move on. And let's go and get the water done. That will be done too. And to build all the courthouses and have $5 billion on a ballot this November to build courthouses and to bring that up to date, which is another thing we need very badly. Those are the kind of things that I would deal with very quickly. But when you have 120 people here, all having their own opinions, it is much more tedious and much more complex, and you got to be much more inclusive, bring everyone together, because you got to get 2/3 of the votes in order to get a budget passed.
Who has to blink first? Who has the farthest to go in order to come to a compromise?
Well, I think that the important thing is to not look at it as a competition, or not to look at it like, that you have two enemies sitting there. It's not like the Israelis and the Palestinians negotiating. We are all Californians, and we all are representing the people of California. So we have something very important in common, that the public's interest is ought to be our number one priority. So it's not the blinking and not blinking as much as like, let's see if we can get the votes. That is I think it was very good that they put up, the Republican version of the budget proposal. It was voted down. They put up the Democratic version. It was voted down. Tomorrow they are putting up my proposal that I have said that it is a more in a middle kind of proposal. And I hope very much that it will pass, that we will get the votes, the 2/3 votes. And, so I would do everything that I can to get that done. So it's not like, then I was victorious and the others lost. No. It was all of them together that made it happen. It is, if we have a budget, it's everyone's victory. And everyone can stand there and say, and we did that, and we did it with budget reform. And that's something that no legislature has done in the last 4 decades.
When would you consider a position in a McCain-Palin administration?
I, first of all, would not leave the state before I'm finished with my job. And I made that very clear, because there's a lot of very important things that need to be still done. Second of all, I think that this job here is the best job that you can have. If you're at all interested in public service, if you're at all interested in doing something for your state or for your country, being the governor of the great state of California is unlike anything else. So I would not switch that for anything in Washington. And the job that I would switch it eventually for is not available for me. So therefore, that is not even worth talking about.
But after you're done here as governor, you would take a position?
Well, then I can talk about what it is, but I maybe can do something much better on a worldwide level. I mean, I will be continuing working on environmental issues worldwide because I think it's a very important issue, and I will continue being involved in business in one way or the other because I'm really a businessman. I love business and turning $1 into $3. So that's what I've always done. And there's maybe something in the entertainment area. There's many, when you do a great job here, to me the most important thing is now is to do a great job for California. Then when they have done a great job and I have kept my promises and we have moved the state forward in a big way and we still got to get the water done and we still got to build the court buildings, we still need to reform, the political reform and all of the kind of things that I talked about from 2003 on. Then when all of this is done, then I can go and there's all kinds of options. There's all kinds of doors of opportunities that will open up, but it's definitely not something that I'm thinking about now. Right now I think budget, budget, budget. Then water, water, water. And this is how we go down and concentrate and focus on the various different things that need to get done.
Governor, thank you for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Thank you.